Really what I'm going to do is really just give you an overview of the selections that I've made, and I'll take some of your questions, and some of the artists are here, so if there are things that you'd like to know more about a specific piece, I'm sure they would be happy and obliged to answer. So as soon as I came in today, the young man at the front desk came over and we started chatting about the pieces, and he said, your section is, tell me your name again?
John.
John. He said, your section is very different, because it's very representational, it's very colorful, and this is my first time seeing it. I wasn't actually here on opening, so it was wonderful to come in and just kind of be pulled and lured in with all of the color. And I really want to thank the artists that participated. I had an opportunity to work with artists, many of them who I had not worked with before, and so that was really the boon for me to have that relationship be a little bit more expansive. But when you are walking around the space, I think this is a wonderful exhibit, and kudos to the curators who selected artists. I think it's a really, really strong exhibit. And in this area, what you do end up seeing is a lot of color, a lot more figuration, and something that is really about, I think, representation and storytelling. And so some of the comments that I'll make have to do with not why I selected these artists, but some of the things the artists may have in common. So curators are always looking, really always looking, for art, at new artists, and for the next wave of artistic production. And we're really stretching ourselves to see beyond where we've been before. In looking, though, we're not always able to show everything that we see, and so this is why Select was really a wonderful opportunity for me. For my selections, it gave me an opportunity to work with some artists like Ellington Robinson, whose work you see here, tape 155. It's the Jamia Richmond Edwards, whose work is here. Artists whose careers I've been following for a while, but I really hadn't had an opportunity to really exhibit. And I should go back to say I work at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum in Baltimore, Maryland, which is a museum focused on African American history and culture. So the type of curating that I do, even when it's art, visual art, it's still in a context of history and culture. The artists are not always talking about historical themes or representing culture, but they're from often backgrounds where that type of representational work or that type of storytelling is something endemic to the way they portray their visual art. So those two artists were ones where, Jamia's work is just so commanding. The women that she chooses to portray come from backgrounds that have been very harsh many times, but she's able to present them in colors and iconography that really uplifts their spirit and uplifts her relationship to them. She talks about women that were prostitutes, that were drug addicted, but when you see the portraits, that's not the first thing that you see, that's not the first thing that comes to mind. And then with Ellington Robinson, his work is kind of a lot of materiality, very tactile, and I think really at the forefront of moving in directions of abstraction that are as contemporary as any of his own contemporaries. So it was exciting for me to be able to include those artists in a way that I hadn't been able to at the Reginald Lewis Museum. We'll walk and actually see some work that's around the corner. Ade Tugabile, who is at MICA, she just is becoming now MFA candidate in this last semester, is going to be graduating. She's a wonderful artist. She was actually in the Global Africa exhibition about 2 years ago in New York City and has done a range of multimedia work, repurposing work, and her sculpture musician is right around the corner. I was also able to include artist friends. So Maya Freelana Sante is an artist that was in an exhibition titled Material Girl that was argued at the Reginald Lewis Museum about 2 years ago. This is her piece, Look Down on War. Maya uses a process called tissue ink monoprint. And what she does is, if you can imagine tissue paper that's been saturated with water and then allowed to drip onto other pieces of paper to create a print. So that's part of her process. She's also harnessing old photographs, sometimes family photographs, vintage photographs, and creating a tissue ink monoprint process, really something she's invented to bring together her use of family history, social history, but then also these really vibrant colors that are kind of watermarks and stains of things in the past. She began to use this tissue paper and watermarking process after living with her grandmother in Philadelphia, she was a MFA student at Temple, and was living with her grandmother in the grandmother's basement. And many of our grandmothers keep things, but her grandmother kept tissue paper. And there was a leak at some point in the basement. So water had been leaking onto tissue paper, leaking, and one day Maya discovered this kind of beautiful imprint, this mark that the water had made, and started thinking about the material itself and how to create art from that material. And she started experimenting. What she found was she couldn't quite get the mark that had been made in the basement, right? Something that happened over time, she wasn't able to replicate in her studio. And initially, she had been wetting the paper very fast, just wetting it, trying to get that mark. And she realized what happened in the basement was that the paper had been wet over a long period of time. Just imagine that ripple effect, like one drop, and then another long time for another drop, and more time for another drop. That creates a different effect than just saturating something immediately. So then she started to work with time and managing the time and saturating with paper to kind of create what you see is this kind of visual density of these different colors. So Maya, who was a material girl and was just noted as one of the 30 artists under 40 black artists that you should know about by the Huffington Post. So you should go check that out. I think it just came out yesterday or the day before. And then next to her is work by Amy Sherrill, and I see both of them as really in a colorist tradition. Amy's work is, the piece that you see here is, I would say, characteristic of many of her paintings. Some of them are even more kind of fantastical. She uses color, but look at the way the skin texture is done. There's a kind of a gray, yellow hue, and we can assume maybe because of the artist's identity or some of the things that she's interested in, that it's a black figure, but the skin itself is not representational in the way that we are accustomed to seeing brown people or black people that have brown skin. So what she's doing with color, I think, is really enigmatic. And she often takes portraits of folks that she's given costumes to. She goes to vintage stores or asks them to bring their own wardrobe, and takes these kind of magical, fantastical photographs and then develops that into the portrait. So being able to work with them in a different space was really great for me.